know if he needed anything. Get this fan on, that's for sure.
Parts of the organization rather than trying to sprinkle
You want this light
entry
on or
level
off?
into nearly every team like we may have done in the past.
Not a sense.
Instead, we're more heavily investing in our NOC, and we have a combined cyber and physical monitoring team that does entry-level SOC work as well as physical security and compliance tasks. And we've also created several mid to entry to mid-level positions in our cloud and server management organization as we reduce the number of third-party contractors that we have doing the day-to-day operations for us. So it's definitely a different landscape than when I got hired. But we've strategically decided that for entry level positions, we'd rather try to focus those roles in areas where we know they'll have a lot of applicable bite sized tasks, if they will. And we're still working on AI adoption as well, but at least in my experience, they're living in harmony, but it does change the outlook a little bit.
So you're looking for more focused areas then?
Yep. In some ways, it's areas that were very, very aligned with the uh, things that we were studying back in the day when I was in the CNS program. Obviously, with slightly newer operating systems and perhaps a few different product names on the networking side, but um, the desire for fundamental understanding of IT concepts that we get out of CNS still helps a lot for those roles.
It's good to hear at least that part of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's kind of the same for us. I would say that as far as I don't know for the doctor's company if I would consider us like a big enough organization to be like a huge AI player in like for how we would be doing stuff. We do generally still hire like it's more of a people first, and then we use AI to supplement some of the workload that we've got. Um, but with that, I would say that having the basics is still the skill set that's needed. So you can get pretty far with using AI, but from what I've seen from some of the people that have gotten hired in, if they don't know what they're doing, you can kind of tell because even with the use of AI, um, it doesn't mask the knowledge that you already have in those fields. I guess it's kind of the best way to phrase that.
So you're no longer with Jackson?
I'm not. I left Jackson about 6 years ago, I think.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
I heard, yeah.
Yep. So
Who are you with now, Alex?
it's a company called it's the Doctors Company. So it's a medical malpractice insurance company, but we were number two in the U.S. Just recently, we purchased a company called Pro Assurance, who was number four in I guess in the U.S. and we became the second largest insurance broker for that. But yeah, we our team did just recently grow pretty big because of that acquisition, but still, from talking to them, even those teams that rely on a lot of automation and AI and stuff like that for it, um, it's really just been supplemental. It's not something where they're replacing people with AI. It's they replace the tasks that those people do with AI to allow for them to move on to the more complex thing.
Has uh, is your organization still hiring entry level people?
We do, yep.
Okay,
Especially so, the security teams actually just hired two. We had an entry level security analyst that just started recently, and then a an entry level engineer who just he actually just started um, a week ago, and those are both considered entry level. I think it was a junior engineer and like a regular analyst, and then on the networking team, they also still. I think it's been about 2 years, but they just recently hired, recently in whatever regard you call it, hired somebody, and that was an entry level position.
The reason why I'm focusing on the entry level positions is because I don't think that a 2-year program can take students and get them ready to be doing some of these mid-level tasks that are are still being left with the humans doing that work. So I'm just curious on whether or not that the entry level jobs that folks are doing right now are being bumped up into the mid level jobs, and the tasks that they used to do are being done by AI. At least some of them.
I think it's easier for entry level people to access, some of those mid level tasks now, in part thanks to AI, at least from what I've seen. Um, the the pipeline for jumping up, I think, is maybe in some ways more aggressive than it used to be because um, due to AI helping take over some of the most simplistic, repeatable tasks, I think there's more of a focus these days on finding people who are really hungry to reach that next level, um, which might be a little disturbing for those who wanted to just sit and coast in their career, which hopefully is something that we talk our students out of as we push them to be the best version of themselves. But I think the risk is really there for the people who are hyper resistant to change or learning to do things a new way.
Do you see? I know one of the favorite things I kind of avoided was documentation. Do you see AI being used in documenting various aspects of the work?
Prolifically.
Oh yeah. So especially with some of the newer ones, we don't use Scribe, but we use a similar tool to it when we're building documentation. And having AI assist with writing based off the transcription that's there is, I would definitely say, is something that's changed in the landscape. Where before that would be, I would build whatever process and then have to go and write all of that after the fact. And now it just does it for me as I'll record the meeting as I'm setting stuff up and it does it.
Yeah, when I look at it, I would think that would be low hanging fruit for AI actually, and that would free up the personnel to actually do some what they call some of the higher level work.
Yep. Yeah. And to continue with that, I know that kind of like what Sam was saying. Um, that's kind of the thing that we see a lot where we push uh, we push the people that are kind of in the lower positions. They can still go do like the tickets or they can do tasks and stuff like that. But once we use AI to move some of that stuff out of the way, um, we just give them more, I guess, like a higher level tasks to try out, and then they just kind of keep gaining the comfort of those higher level tasks, and they get those, and then they move into the new position, and that's kind of that's how that workflow usually goes for us.
That's good to know. James or Al, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I was
Go
taking.
ahead, James.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was taking a few notes here. Yeah, this is interesting. So here's what I'm seeing from my multiple different contacts. Um, Summarizing it, I'd say the treadmill, the IT treadmill that we've been on our whole lives, um, has not only sped up, but it's split in about 2 or 3 different directions. Um, the If you remember, I don't know, several months back, Cisco had a conference primarily for faculty, and I took a note on it. My notes are, if my memory is keeping up. I think they said they had around 70% of their software for their appliances was created by AI, and within 2 years, I think it was either 90% or greater than 90%. Um, that being said, I know one institution, the computer science faculty, the ones who actually teach programming, are kind of crapping their pants because they're afraid that they're not going to have jobs here in a few years because people can just do anything they want through your browser pretty much. But in the work environment, I deal with U of M's apprenticeship program for IT personnel, and they have around, I think the number is around 1,000 support personnel. 900 of them work from home. Is what they told me. That's the notes that I wrote. 900 of the 1,000 work from home. Now, that being said, they run students through WCC's computer system tech program just to give them hard skills and technical insight, and then they put them back on the back end, for public facing support. That being said, there's a financial institution I know in Toledo area that they were doing interviews remotely, like this, and they said they had to stop because some of the people that their candidates weren't even in the country. They needed to be not only U.S. citizens but working here, work for the financial institution. So they went back to face to face, and they even had some interviewees using AI to answer their questions during the interview. Now, Larry, if you remember, hopefully you do, a few years back over at Davenport, when we had a competition, I showed that video. I got that from one of the Baker guys. I don't remember what it was, but I showed it to everybody. Interview with a millennial. You remember that?
Vaguely.
Anyway, you guys go to YouTube, do Interview with a Millennial. It's not only entertaining, but it's kind of enlightening. But anyway, I see that same concept with people crutching themselves intellectually with software tools like AI. And your comment about two-year schools not preparing students for positions above entry level, that's dead on. With the exception of students who are coming back to get advanced degrees or formalizing their degrees. So we're kind of all over the place with this. It's like 20 some years ago, the word cyber was all the cool word, now it's AI is the cool word, but it's making an impact. So,
Yeah, you notice
especially in academia.
Notice we don't see much on the news about breaches anymore. Doesn't mean they're not there, just that they've been that language has been crowded out by AI.
Yeah, they're doing a better job at covering it up.
Yeah, James, you hit on something really important, and what I think is good news in a way for those of us here at JC or who are coaching students through the program. Companies are definitely more cautious these days about hiring a fully remote worker, both because of the increased potential for them to scam their way through a remote interview, or for the company themselves to just be blindsided by somebody who's being deceptive about their physical presence and whatnot. So I think we'll see more and more companies ask for initial and follow-up interviews in person, and where students can show a company that, hey, I will be here, I live a modest distance away, and I'd like to commit myself to helping this organization, I think that's something that can give them an advantage. So it's no longer about as much about shooting for the high dollar positions on the coasts and working remotely, or vice versa, living in a very attractive area and then trying to get a fully remote position out here in the Midwest. I think people are going to have to readjust a little bit to being closer to their work. And I think that's something that the CNS program can help people with.
Yeah, and I see the same thing. We do while we have a lot of offices throughout the U.S. We don't. There's definitely some dead zones where it's very far before we hit another office, and in those areas we do. Um, we always go through like a third party that they like the candidate has to go and meet somebody that we trust in person, and we usually use like a third party, or they have to come into an office for that. And so it's, I think what Sam's saying is definitely true, where it's, being localized is something that can help out with those types of interviews.
Al, you were going to comment a bit ago?
Yeah, I was, with respect to the entry level positions at my company, we've got, tier one, tier two, and tier three tech support. Then we've got the engineering crew. So the tier one and tier two, as I understand it, I mean, there's no specific requirements for any kind of artificial intelligence. I mean, they're required to know, the basics, kind of like your list there, your networking, Windows server, some virtualization kind of thing. Um, they, without a doubt, use AI to assist them in their troubleshooting. So they're using it. Uh, our company is softly rolling it out to users. We just had a small seminar about how to better use Copilot, and we're not asking the users to use Copilot to uh, solve problems, if you will, but rather make your verbiage a little more appealing to whatever it may be. So we've taught people, put something together, have Copilot look it over. Maybe they can reword that in a way that is more attractive. So that's on the user side. On my side, in the engineering world, um, I'm really looking at AI with respect to telephony. That's what I do. I'm a telecom engineer for a medical company. And the big thing in the telephony world is the self-serve. And I'm sure we've all been there at one time where, you call, let's say Comcast, for example, and um, it almost walks you through, here's your account, here's your circuitry, here's your bill, here's your balance. Would you like to pay now? Press one, use credit card on file, yes. You get through the entire conversation, not talking to one person, and you've got your answer, they've got their money. So the idea of self-service is huge in the telephony world, and that's kind of where I'm going and I'm leaning toward. So that's more at an advanced level. The entry level guys, like I said, Larry, they're using it to solve problems, and I really don't live in that world. I mean, I live in their world when they send tickets up that they can't handle, but they are definitely using AI in some form to help them out with that. As a requirement, though, to say, hey, you know, for the job requirement, AI experience, not, I haven't seen that, and it's not required at my company.
Okay. Dale, do you have any comments here on this?
Is this working?
Yes.
You good?
Okay, good. I started on the phone. I couldn't get the microphone to work. No comments really. I've been retired for a year and a half, and it's been so long since I had anything to do with entry level. So now I'm just trying to think of ways to get more kids into your program, really, like Cyber Patriot.
Hey,
If you've got any students that want to volunteer at that, they could, if they know Windows or Linux, they could probably teach high school kids a few things.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry, let me comment on something that I think is important for
Go ahead.
um, you, entry level people going into a job. And this, you know what, it has to do with technology, but really not. But it's ticketing. I've seen time and time and time and time again on these jobs, these entry level jobs, they want some form of ticketing experience, whether it's Jira, whether it's Freshdesk, whether it's Freshservice, whatever. So, consider that when a curriculum is there. I don't know if there's something that we could put in, squeeze it in as a lesson, or maybe even do it do it short 8-week class on it, because some of this ticketing not only touches AI, but the automation process. Ticket comes in. Okay, what kind of ticket is it? Okay, does it go over here and it reads it and it says, hey, this is the level it should be. It kicks it over to tier three. Tier three looks at it and then does whatever. Not to mention that ticketing, you can automate the process. So let's say there's a process, 10 things, 15 things long. You can set it up and program it in a way to where, okay, step one has to be done before step two has to be done before step three needs to have approval by a manager, so on and so forth. I know these other guys that looks like maybe Sam and Alex totally get what I'm talking about, but that seems to be a big thing for entry level people to have some form of ticketing experience, know how about how that works.
Is the ticketing thing a matter of process that they just need to learn, or is there something I don't quite
Yeah, I think it's like they're all the same. I mean, no different than you buy a Ford, it's got a steering wheel and four tires, just the same as a Chevy steering wheel, four tires. They all pretty much do the same thing. Some have more bells and whistles than the other, but I guess the whole kind of like you said, the process of the ticket. You got the end user creating the ticket. We have managers creating tickets. There's different levels, and the process of how that ticket goes through. Is it closed? Is it opened? Is it waiting for a response? Is it pending? Because a lot of directors, stakeholders, whatever, use that data, use those metrics to make business decisions. Hiring. I mean, look at the ticket list here. All these tickets are coming in. So many are resolved, so many are not. We need another person, or you hardly have any tickets coming in. What the hell are you doing, kind of thing. So it was a big part in my search process. Uh, you know, few months back, with that, every time I ran into something, there was something ticketing experience preferred.
Yeah, and I just to kind of add to that, I think uh, I think ticketing is definitely an important thing for that. Kind of in the larger picture to it, um, just hands-on experience in general. I think is kind of the big thing. That was something that I noticed that with our program, even with us being a smaller school compared to like U of M, MSU, some of those, we've interviewed a couple people for some entry level positions, and when they go through college and they might have touched packet tracer a couple times and done a few smaller things. They don't have the same level of experience that we've gone through, where you go through like a full server build, you go through the full like setting up Active Directory, going through all of that, like all of those types of things. Um, and so I think it's really that the experience of going through those setups and having some of that knowledge is what is kind of more important there. I think having experience with AI, just to kind of tie it back in, is helpful. Like it was talked about, we're having like some prompt engineering experience, just kind of knowing how to ask the AI questions to help you with that. Um, Whether that needs to be a course on its own or just something that's kind of like is a common theme in some of the other classes about here's how you do it, here's how you can have AI help you do it faster, that kind of thing. That I think is a good a good skill set to have, I
That,
think.
that's a good point you brought up of, how you ask it.
Yeah.
And, how you ask AI to do something really matters on the results. For example, if you use the word generate versus create, and you ask it the same damn thing, it's going to come out with different results. So to know how to better use AI, I think is critical for entry level because they're
Yeah,
going to be using it.
yeah, I always felt that even if you use the same prompt twice in the same large language model, you're going to get different results
Yeah,
quite frequently.
yeah.
I always felt that, we talk about students needing to have critical thinking. Well, what is critical thinking? It's basically asking questions and asking good questions to get to where you want to be. And so, regarding the debate whether or not you should embed uh, prompt engineering as part of a course that is a regular course or have a separate course, I'm thinking that if you had a prompt engineering course, that would improve students' ability to think, what questions do I need to ask?
But I'll throw
Let-
something a little wild that I doubt anyone would have put money on me ever saying, but this is probably a case where the English courses in the
Yeah,
general
Yeah,
electives are going to come in very strong. If students take advantage of those and they really appreciate um, the minute differences between words and how to concisely and accurately state their point and ask a directed question, both to humans and to machines now, I think that'll set them up for success. And a huge part of advancing in your career, I can attest to it wholeheartedly, is you need to do a good job of presenting yourself to people. When it comes time to share raises and promotions and push people along in the business, technical competency absolutely matters. That's going to affect your flexibility as you move into new roles and take on more challenging tasks. Um, but equally, you need to be able to work with humans and communicate your point effectively.
I totally agree. That was a big, I won't say a big issue, but that was a big thing with turnover when I was working in Jackson when we were hiring for the SOC. We actually, in one of the interviews, we had to implement they called it a writing test. It was really just about sending an email to a higher level person about like an issue with their computer or a vulnerability or something like that. And we had a lot of people that just, go to send that email and it was just not formatted well. It didn't make sense. It wasn't clear. And we couldn't, you couldn't with a good conscience put that person in a position where they were sending, a senior VP an email to say, hey man, I saw this thing's broken. Like, you can't do that. So to Sam's point, yeah, I think they
last semester I had a student email me, and I'm telling you straight up, it was, hey dude, that, hey dude, I'm running late or something like that, and I showed my wife that, and she just shook her head. I think, oh man, what's happening here? Hey dude,
yeah.
Hey, Larry, what was that class you said about would teach them what questions to ask? Did you say progress engineering or
no,
what's
prompt engineering.
prompt engineering?
Yeah,
Prompt like here.
like so you're an AI chat bot. You type some stuff in, that's a prompt. Um,
I just threw it in the chat for you, James. That's what we're talking about.
I'm not, let me take a look because I'm prompt engineering. Okay, I've not heard that term, so
Yep. Yeah. So it's like, like Alan mentioned, Sam talked about it a lot. It's basically just how you ask AI questions.
oh, got it.
You're making sure that you're direct. Having specific language, that kind of stuff.
a corollary term to that would be prompt injection.
Yep.
I like that too.
Well, that's essentially jailbreaking the large language model to bypass any guardrails it might have in place. And so both of them are designed to essentially steer. I heard this comment once about these large language models. They're kind of like a real smart assistant, new assistant. You kind of have to guide them to the right spot where you want them to be. And then, of course, as soon as you start a new chat, a lot of that is forgotten. So I agree with Sam. Just the language that's used, the meaning behind the words, the subtle meanings behind the words can play a huge role in the output that you see using some of these AI tools.
Yeah, like I say, man, everything's going in different directions.
But
Yeah.
it's going at light speed too. It feels like.
People,
At least to this old guy, it feels like that.
people don't. People, you're right. People don't know how to ask proper questions at a lot of, at least in a technical environment. I've always thought that half of being smart is knowing what we're dumb at, and sometimes we don't know. Asking a prompt for an answer is not educating us. It's
Yeah. Well, and even on that, James. So one of the things that kind of what was talked about for like having that foundational skill set, or like just learning stuff from these courses that gets you the foundational knowledge. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to ask the question for what you want to do. And so that's kind of where that foundational skill set comes in. Where even, I guess, regardless of what you're doing, you go ask for the question, I want to set up this network to do whatever. It's like, well, what kind of network, what protocols do you want to use? What's the environment look like already? That kind of stuff. And if you don't know that, and you don't know how to express it, the AI is not going to be able to help you know how to do that or express it.
Or worse, it might give you an extremely low quality and susceptible to compromise architecture, and you won't know what it is you're about to install.
Yep.
Like you were saying earlier, Alex, I think that's one of the strong suits in Larry's program over the years, the amount of hands-on work we've done. I'd much rather hire somebody who's had that under their belt, building servers, configuring switches and routers, perhaps knowing that they'll only do the hands-on fully manual version a few times before they get handed the more advanced tools that can speed that process along. But if they understand what it is they're asking a machine to help them build, then I have far more trust in the end result, and that they'll be using the time they gain back more valuably in the long run.
Yep, and that's exactly. I've had a couple of tickets escalated to me where some of the analysts just don't know how to respond to some of it, but it's always like it's about the whole vibe coding stuff that's been going on lately, where like we've got somebody in finance that's like, hey, I really want to do this, but Copilot tells me I need to install Python. I'm not really sure what that is, but I need to install it on my computer to get this thing done. And we're like, no. And it's just like, if you don't even know what it is, how do you know that the AI prompt isn't giving you some total garbage code that's gonna, that's either already vulnerable, is malicious, or anything like that. So.
And as people in the business get these prompts or these answers back from AI, pushing them to do things that traditionally live under our tents, we're going to have to do a better job of communicating back to them, here's the right way to accomplish what you need, or how can we better keep them informed of the suite of tools that our IT departments might maintain that already accomplish some of their goals, so that they can pursue the results they're looking for, so that we can keep the business moving forward, but without introducing unnecessary risk.
Yep, exactly.
Another question to kind of wind this particular aspect down a little bit. If your organization was advertising for an entry-level position and you had two candidates come to you, one who had no AI experience using AI at all, and another candidate who has used AI, what would the odds, what would the likelihood of the AI student would or candidate would be hired over the other one?
Is it exactly the same? Like, would I mean? Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same, but would the rest of the items in their resume be the same, like ish, or because personally, when we do hiring, I can't say that we specifically look for AI experience, while it is preferred for like depending on what we're hoping that that person is doing. Um, it's preferred that they at least know what AI is and know how to use it at a basic level. But
So they don't have to be an AI expert, but if they had a little bit of AI experience, that would be a plus for them.
it would be a plus, yeah. I can't say for certain that it would get them hired over the other candidate, depending on what qualifications they have.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
But
lot of other characteristics that go into whether or not somebody's hired or not.
I really don't, in my world there, Larry, I don't really think that would matter because
Okay,
you could easily teach that. I think the big thing is selling yourself, being able to communicate effectively, looking somebody in the eye, the handshake. I don't even know if the handshake's even a thing anymore with respect to, remote work.
yeah.
But, you know, the ability to communicate effectively, I think, um, overrides any AI knowledge only because again, you can learn that where sometimes, personal skills, I guess you could learn them, but some of them come natural, others don't. Uh, so I would say that really doesn't matter.
Earlier today, I emailed you guys a couple documents. They're wanting me to revise or rework our program learning outcomes. So there were a couple of alternate forms that had, I think one had 5 outcomes, another one had like 8 or 10. I just I just sent you an email to the group with a couple more documents that had uh, program learning outcomes, but this time it's going to be AI augmented list of CNS classes or program outcomes. So it'd be helpful if you could take a look at those and if you have a vote as to a preference as to which one you would think makes sense or whether there are some program outcomes that should be included that aren't there. I'd like to get some feedback on that. Nothing we have to do tonight. You should have just got those.
Just
Um,
got that email, Larry. For quick clarification, would we be voting, for example, in the latest email between AI augmented version 7 and version 10, or between these documents and the one in the previous email?
all 4 documents.
Oh, okay.
And again, these are just first drafts. And by the way, I used AI to generate those.
Good job.
I just I, my prompt was something like, "You are a course designer or you're a program lead for computer networking and security. Generate the appropriate program learning outcomes
Watching Cape
for a
Fear,
2-year
doing
college
some
degree."
exercises.
It went out. So feel free to criticize any of the language that's down there as well. But I'm finding that
Where do you want this at?
getting back to the documentation story, I'm finding I'm using AI
But you
quite a
want
bit
some
to help me
coals to
with my
set the
writing
coffee up.
and to generate ideas.
Why are the shakies gone from over
Um,
here?
Are you seeing any differences in your hiring preferences between someone who has a degree without a certification, industry recognized certifications like Security Plus or the CCNA, or any preferences for those who have those certifications?
so personally, we don't see that a lot, but I would say I
She
know
what?
uh,
Has shit on
a
her
lot of
nose?
larger companies and some mid-sized companies these days. A lot of the filters that they do for like their first level interviews and things like that are all using AI, and they're all looking for specific filters. So they look for, like, you know, are these certificates there? If they're not, you know, you get like a lower score, I guess, on your resume for that.
Mhm.
Um, so like for us, for instance, while it might help, usually even for entry level folks, our interviews are, I'm not going to say are low level technical enough, but we do ask enough questions where even if you like, it doesn't matter what cert you have, we can kind of figure out if you know what you're talking about or not, or if you just took the cert because you memorized the questions. Um, but I know with a lot of companies, uh, having those certs are the key to get the interview. You know,
Yeah, I've been reading where like the Security Plus is a deal breaker for various federal jobs and various state jobs. Have you guys encountered any of that before?
yeah. So that's. I mean, I don't know if Security Plus is the only one, but that is one of them in the list. I think the DoD specifically has a handful of
Yeah.
certs that, you know, if you have any of the above, you qualify for certain job ranks. And I think Security Plus, Network Plus, those are the types of certs that are in um, that entry level area. We don't have that as a requirement, but it is like a nice to have. And usually, if we hire somebody that doesn't have that, after their first year where they've, you know, been at the company, they're used to the job and they're kind of ready to do more stuff. We usually push them to do the continuing education and get like a Security Plus, Network Plus, as kind of the start cert.
What's the regarding internships? Do you require those? Are they viewed positively, or they just kind of like, eh?
I would say we do generally uh, see interviews positively, just because it's kind of back on that like experience piece where like even if you're not doing, you know, even if you're not doing like crazy amounts of technical work in your internship, the fact that you have experience working in a corporate environment or, you know, government environment or whatever that is, I know that always adds value. Just um,
One of
being
the
able to say that you've done that.
one of the problems we have with internships here at Jackson College. I know Sam was lucky because you got an internship at Consumers. Um, Alex, did you get an internship anywhere?
I didn't. I started at Jackson as a contractor, so I did. I went through Texas Stone as
Yeah, that's
a
right.
contract to hire.
I'm finding that a lot of the students are really having trouble finding internships. Um, a lot of the organizations they're applying at, they don't have big staffs, and it's putting a lot of extra weight on their existing staff shoulders to mentor and kind of find work for those students to do. Um, so if you had to weigh the pros and cons between a certificate like Security Plus certification or an internship, which would they be considered equal? Would one be preferred over the other?
Um, I can't say for certain if one would be preferred over the other. I think personally, if I was in an interview, I would probably look at the experience over the cert, just because, like I said, the certs can be nice, but most of the time these days it's more of the way to get past the initial HR filter for it. Um, with an internship, a lot of times you're able to get like you get the hands-on experience doing that. Like I know, depending on the organization, it's hard to get some technical experience, but it does help. Um, I would say if you were looking to do something like that, I would say I would probably consider it an either or
Okay.
kind of thing. So it's um, you would need both, you know, having one or the other.
Yeah,
Jay?
in a similar vein, I think we'd be in my organization looking at those as either ors as well in many cases, understanding that there are a lot of students, particularly in this area, just with our geographic restriction, not being near one of the biggest industrial and business cities in Michigan. It can be tough to find internships. I'm curious, Larry, would JC count volunteer hours with nonprofits or community organizations where you assist with IT functions as an internship? So I wonder if that might help fill the gap a little bit.
It would if um, there was somebody at that organization that they were volunteering at who would supervise them.
Okay.
You know, not necessarily supervise their technical experience, but to manage them, if, you know, making sure that they could vouch for the work and the hours that they were putting in. In fact, I have a student who moved to Atlanta. And he was having trouble finding internships. And I suggested he talk to churches and things like that he wanted to gain some hours. But I think he's going to follow the certification route.
Larry, are internships required for part of your degree program?
They have, yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen and I'll pull up that document.
Just so that I can follow along, Larry, is this the PDF that you sent?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
I don't know if it's shared or not. You see my PDF?
Not yet.
That's it, okay. How about now?
Yep.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, so here's the current iteration of the degree, Cloud Network and Security Administration. Scroll on down, it's 62 credit hours. Going down here, and they've got these general education outcomes. And so here, the degree is structured around these 8 core courses. And then they've got them split up into various tracks, whereas you guys, they saw you could get multiple associate degrees. Now they're calling them tracks. But here you can see that if you follow the cybersecurity track, there's an internship here for that one. There's an internship as far as the cloud track, and there's an internship as part of the networking track. Now, because of the difficulty a number of students have had with getting an internship, they've always given the students an opportunity to create a capstone project. Well, those capstone projects seem to be even more difficult for the students to come up with ideas for a capstone project. So here recently, in the last couple of years, we've been allowing certifications. If they present a certification, that would substitute for that internship. So it's kind of like what you were getting at, you kind of valuing the internship and the certification on equal grounds as far as its usefulness in the student getting a entry-level job.
Larry, I don't want to throw a wrench into this, but I am completely against required internships.
I am too.
So, and capstone projects, I wouldn't have an academic program that did not have a capstone project, as I know you are too. So, because students are so disillusioned, and it's disheartening for them to go through all that work and can't find an internship. Just so let me just digress for 1 second. There's a large, somewhat large educational institution on the east side of the state that they required internships, and they would take anything. I know somebody that they had to pay 12 credits for an internship, and it was a bartending job for IT. they work. It was an IT program, and they took it because they were mixing drinks or something. And anyway, long story short, um, I, I I don't know if I had my way, I'd have Jeannie blink that off there, and put capstone project, and then give them about 5 suggestions, and then let them pick it or another one if they wanted to.
I agree to that.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree to that.
so James, you are giving your students 4 to 5 possible capstone projects for them to do.
If they come up with one, but I have them, actually we set up a server, we pound the heck out of it with Penta, Metasploit capture, and then have them analyze, and they have to tell me exactly what attack occurred. That's one aspect, but internships we don't do. And none of the people I deal with do that. Not to throw names out there, but Baker used to require that, and it was hideous. It was discouraging. So,
James, you're preaching to the choir here. I always felt that internships were just
that sounds like an administrative requirement.
it was.
I would go back and tell them, hey, the advisory board started throwing things at the monitor. But I've got some of the bubble that I work in, the contacts I have, that they jumping back to the certifications. Several of them, and then these are high power hires too, said that they don't even worry about certifications because all that proves is that you're trainable. And as I think it was Alex that said, that you take the skill over the certification, which I would any day.
Yes.
I wouldn't discard a certification, but I would not hire somebody based solely on certifications.
Well, I'm old enough. You get to a certain point in your life where you start thinking back, where the hell did all that time go? I'm at that point right now, and I'm just thinking, God, just 28 years ago, I started learning about Novell. And
Novell, sorry
yeah.
to hear that.
Huh?
Novell, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, it was what they taught at Baker.
I know.
And at the time, the CNA, the Certified Novell Network Administrator, was being promoted quite heavily, and it was that certification you get after taking one Novell class. And at the time, there was quite a bit of debate about paper CNAs. They knew how to pass the test, but they didn't know how to set up a Novell server and get it working.
And that's what I've seen in industry a lot is paper certs. You're papered up, all up and down your wall, and you can't tie your shoelaces.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, I only had 3 students in the last 25 plus years that would fit into that category. They could pass tests, but they couldn't really do stuff. So where we're at right now with the internships is that it's going to be an option between an internship, a capstone project of some sort, and industry recognized certification. Now, I'm leaning towards industry certification because I'll tell you why. We're starting to see a fair amount of pressure, at least down here, where they're really stressing that the government wants students to graduate with an industry recognized credential. And I'm realigning a lot of the content of my classes to match the certification test objectives. Not all of my classes are that way, but those that map to, for example, the Linux Plus or the Security Plus or the CCNA certifications, I think those 3 certifications right there would be very valuable for a student when they went to apply for a job. And the advantage of those certifications is that the program or the test objectives are reviewed and updated every 3 years. So that burden doesn't have to fall on the instructor to come up with the course objectives. But that's kind of where I'm heading with some of my classes.
Well, when I teach a Cisco class, I tell them if you pass the CCNA certification, I don't care what you score in the final, you got an A in the class.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
I trade the score on the final for an A.
I've done that too.
Yeah, and another thing, and this is kind of a change in perspective, kind of from James what you were saying. But one of the things that, as far as like having the paper certs and having that kind of stuff, the reason why I agreed, Larry, that it's a good idea to have one of the certifications is not necessarily because while you can get some good skill from it, the main reason is because, you know, if you're looking for a job these days, a lot of times everybody that you're up against has a cert, has a master's, has a whatever for the same position that you do. And it doesn't matter how smart you are, if you can't get the interview because you're missing that cert or missing that requirement,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to tell them how good you are because you can't get the interview.
Yeah, that was my thought too. Get past that. The certification will get you past that at least screening hurdle.
Exactly. Like we talk about this all the time where there was somebody that used to work with us that he probably couldn't get himself through like a whole ticket without asking, you know, 1,000 questions, and he was supposed to be a senior, like one of the senior analysts. Has a master's, has a CYSA plus, has CISSP, has all that stuff. Couldn't security his way out of a paper bag, you know, but he got that interview because of having all of those things.
Yeah.
So,
James, you've had a number of anecdotes similar to that, haven't you? I think you said you had a doctorate from Carnegie Mellon, couldn't assign an IP address to a router.
Yeah, you know, the resume and the certs get you the interview, the skills and the personality get you the job.
Yeah,
There you go.
there you go.
Very well said.
Yep, and a good middle ground, of course, if students have to take certification to complete the program, or if that's one way to close the loop. You know, at least when it comes to things like Linux Plus, CCNA, Security Plus, and even sometimes more vendor-specific certs. At least if you treat it as an opportunity to skill yourself up in the system that you're about to be tested in, and you look at it as not just a question bank, but a subject you want to master, you can at least, of your own volition, make that more valuable and help yourself along with your career.
I totally agree, and that's why, like, I agree that doing some more like vendor agnostic certs are definitely good because they're more readily recognized throughout. I know, Larry, when you had asked those questions, I had brought up like some Microsoft certs and some stuff like that. If people are trying to do just something on their own for that, like if they're not trying to have like if they're not trying to spend the $600 or $800 or whatever for some of these certifications, they're like Microsoft has some pretty cheap ones that are still very valuable as far as trying to go through like an engineering course or like security fundamentals or that kind of stuff. And they're like $100, $160, like that kind of stuff. And then if you treat it like Sam said, you're using it as a route to actually learn and not just get the cert so that you have the cert, then you can learn a lot.
I've started
Oh, God.
asking, first day of class, I started asking the students this question, essentially is, why are you here? And if they're going to come up with a number of reasons, but if they don't come up with, I need to learn this material to get a job, or anything a lot close to that line, I don't trust what they're doing remotely.
No.
I mean, I've had a few students who's taking a 50-question multiple choice test, hasn't logged in but couple hours, if that, to his Canvas course, and yet he was able to get 100% on his test. It took him 5 minutes to do it.
All right, I'm going to the basement.
Anyway, what are the couple other things I was wanting to cover today? Oh, if you had to make a choice between learning PowerShell or Python, which would you recommend?
PowerShell.
I think, yeah, I think for a day-to-day usefulness, PowerShell is, I mean, it kind of depends on the environment that you're going into. Like where I work, we're pretty much just a Windows shop, so PowerShell is going to be more powerful there. But having the knowledge there, what if you know one language, you can usually figure out the rest of them. They're all kind of the same syntax, so it's about knowing what packages they have, kind of going from there.
See, I would have thought it would have been Python because of the prevalence of Python in security.
Well,
Well, I'll go ahead, James.
when you said that, students, when they ask me, well, should I get a CCNA or Microsoft cert, I say yes. So I would say PowerShell for any IT administrative position or support position, but Python for any security emphasis or focus. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yes, okay. The background to that, of course, is the fact that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of network administrator jobs are actually going to decline over the next 10 years.
I could see that happening.
Whereas the security aspect, cybersecurity aspect, are expected to increase by like 34%. So, given that tidbit, would your choice of scripting languages change?
I guess I'll give a multiple choice answer.
I thought you were going to give me a multiple answer.
Well, I suppose that's probably what I actually mean. But echoing what the other guys would say, PowerShell, if you feel yourself really drawn to system administration, particularly in a Microsoft heavy environment, but to throw another wrench in the works, probably Python actually, if you anticipate yourself doing a lot of cloud administration.
Yeah.
Even in Azure, almost all of their automations can be scripted through Python. They have Python native tooling, and I think you'll probably find that more applicable if you were in an AWS, Google Public Cloud, or Cloudflare environment where they don't have as much of a Microsoft backend. Both are obviously great, but as we've been seeing in the descriptions, it does depend a little bit on where you envision yourself specializing. But just going through the effort of learning how to use a language and to tackle problems with it, either way, you're going to be set up for success.
Yeah, and I mean,
It does that.
to
It doesn't
keep
lie.
on that, like, just to keep up with some projects and stuff like that I've worked on in the doctor's company. You know, I've done stuff in Python, I've done stuff in Go, I've done stuff in R. Like they're all the same, really. Like once you get down to it, it's all just about this, like the specific syntax to it. So just learning a language is super useful for just being able to go and do a new language afterwards.
Well, one of the challenges I have
Today the
down here,
6th?
Jackson, is
Yeah.
we've got all these courses, and
Don't get tangled in that headphone when you
I'm
walk.
going to be retiring here at some point. And I honestly feel like I got off that treadmill for about 10 minutes. Now I feel like I'm about 10 years behind keeping up with stuff. So I'm not going to be able to teach as much as I used to. And finding folks who are going to be able to be an adjunct in this area is going to be a challenge, I think. We are moving the CNS classes back into the classroom. I hated teaching online. It's convenient because you don't have to go anywhere. But I never really felt like I was interacting with the students like I used to. I missed that a great deal. So when they need to rationalize some of these courses that you're seeing in that PDF, and my thought was to take those those 8 courses, maybe change those up a little bit, moving like an introduction to cloud into one of those 8 courses, eliminating possibly the wireless networking class, because you see, if I'm not mistaken, James, doesn't the CCNA, one of those 3 classes, deal a fair amount with the wireless?
No, they have, I think, one module or
That's
two. No, it's not a significant amount. It's mostly
You think-
routing, switching.
Yeah, do you think it would be better to keep the wireless class where it's basically we're using the wireless network administrator certification as its
I'm not familiar with the that certification.
The
But-
CCWA, right?
yeah,
The
see,
one that's-
I don't know enough about it to answer that honestly.
well, it gets into like radio frequency fundamentals, antennas.
Well, if the curriculum is well delivered, I mean, online's great for certain things like going over the OSI model and
Yeah,
basic concepts. But if you want to wire a network, obviously not. So but that's a tough one. I don't know. I don't know enough about this. Or
So I know not the CCWA, for instance, but I know the networking plus has some wireless in it for it. I don't remember how much exactly. I know it covers it a little bit, but I know, and this might be different just because between the different job roles, I'm not primarily in networking, but I know that wireless. It's really kind of niche depending on the organization that you're working on. There's a lot of companies that are still very heavily wired, and then a lot of companies are not. So it really depends on where you're going. But I think if you cover the networking fundamentals well, the on-the-job training kind of covers the wireless portion of knowing. Being able to, use figuring out radio frequencies, figuring out coverage, maps, that kind of stuff. That's all stuff that you would learn on the job, which I feel like might be more useful. Sam, I think you're still in networking, aren't you? Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you might be able to answer that a little bit better than I can. But
Yeah, and you're hitting on a key topic, and it kind of hurts me to say because I do wireless for hobby as well, but
Sam,
Hey, Bear.
oh nice, we need to
Yeah.
exchange
You want a BLT
call
for
signs
lunch,
afterwards.
Or do you want
um,
grilled turkey with
but
cheese?
like
Real turkey.
for my own company,
You want a BLT?
we have
Real turkey.
you're probably all, I forget where exactly in Michigan you live, but you probably all have a wireless device that my company delivers sitting on the side of your house. And we have access points all over the state. We integrate with the state radio system and have some of our own dedicated backhaul. And we still have 3 people who are highly specialized in wireless concepts and radio frequencies. So I remember taking that course, and it was wonderful for stretching the mind and getting you thinking about
Okay.
how the computer networking and
Yeah, for
security
a few
concepts
minutes,
that we're playing with tie into the physical world, because you have to deal with things like how do radio waves conflict with each other, and how do you deliver something with optimization. So I don't think it's a
What?
bad course by any means. It's great for getting
Okay.
people to think in a productive manner about technology, but I totally hear the argument to consider adding either cloud computing or virtualization there in its place to make it a little bit more broadly applicable.
we kind of ran into bump in the road as far as the virtualization went because VMware was bought out by
At Broadcom, yeah.
Broadcom, and they eliminated their VMware Academy, so we don't have free access to the various VMware products.
That
You still
acquisition hurt my soul.
Yeah.
can still get VMware Workstation for free, but the other stuff. So now our other option is find somebody who knows anything about Proxmox. You guys familiar with that at all?
A little.
Midwest region's going to Proxmox, this FYI. Yeah, they're doing some development in that, and actually, we're doing some SCADA. As a matter of fact, I got a tech supposed to set up some SCADA equipment configurations for me, so keep that in mind too. SCADA is not getting smaller, obviously, but a question on that. You said that, or actually, let me back up to follow up on your wireless comment. My thought is, and again, I don't know much about the CERT, but if you have good, solid networking foundations, they can stretch into wireless. But if you did a capstone, if you didn't want to have a face-to-face wireless course, do it online and then put it in a capstone where they have to build it. Because in my network forensics class, I developed a module on threat hunting where I have the tech run around the building and put out 2 access points titled Find Me 1 and Find Me 2, and they have to find them on their cell phones using tools. And so stuff like that, they love that. So anything you could tie into a capstone to make more like an enterprise presence, enterprise network, that would be fine.
Yeah.
That might cover that. But the other question is, you said the CNS courses are going back on in the classroom. Is that all of them? Are you not going to have any online or what?
No. Right now, there has not been any class in that classroom for 6 years. It's hard to believe, but it's been 6 years.
Probably
since
getting
I've-
dusty.
Well, they didn't replace the computers. So what I'm doing this fall is I'm piloting 4 classes as hybrids. And I just want to make sure that the room is going to be able to support at least some of the CNS classes. I'm going to keep a number of the courses as online classes. Particularly, I think some of the Cisco stuff works well as, like I think of that Cisco 3 class works well as an online class, doesn't it, James?
Yeah, it seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah. So the school has set some goals of having 50% of the classes being offered on campus, rather than where we were at with COVID, where everything was online. So I'm going to be testing that out, seeing if the equipment in there is going to support a certain amount of classes. But that's the direction that we're going to be going.
Is that 50% of all classes or IT classes?
All classes.
Okay.
But I know that when it comes to finding adjuncts, there are some adjuncts. I've got an adjunct that lives down in the Indianapolis area. He sure as heck isn't going to drive to Jackson for our course. I'd like to keep him. So one solution to that would be to take a look at all of those CNS classes that are in that document right now, and to see if there are some classes that you don't feel are going to be as valuable as other classes. For example, there's one there in the cloud part, which deals with storage management, information storage management. That was based upon what was that storage company that got bought out by Dell? EMC, was it?
EMC, yeah.
So that course was developed based upon the EMC curricula, and before we even got it out in the classroom, EMC was bought out by Dell, and there went that. So that has really never had enough students make it as a full class. That's one I'm thinking of cutting. But if you take a look at those other courses, in other words, there need to be a second Microsoft Server 2 class.
Yeah, so Larry, when looking at some of these courses, one of the things that I would suggest is maybe if you're trying to find something to move out of core, um, maybe offer Python or PowerShell as a core class, and then
Yeah.
move wireless to the networking track.
Well, I'm thinking about eliminating the tracks altogether and having a list of electives.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
So
I
that-
mean
so-
that would work out well too then. So like having a core set and then moving wireless to one of the electives that you can take if you want to do networking
Yes.
as kind of more of a specialized thing.
And circling back a little bit to our discussion about prompt engineering, wondering if whether or not I should have a separate whether the college, in fact, should have a separate prompt engineering class that could be used for, business and accounting and any of these other academic programs that they've got, or whether or not it'd be better off to have just start including prompt engineering as part of the regular course material.
So because I've taken a couple like just online prompt engineering courses, just being curious about the AI movement and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough content to be a class on its own.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you were going to do like an AI fundamentals course, something like that, that is something that would be, it could cover like like basics of AI usage, some of the dangers that come with AI,
Yeah, ethics.
kind of going through that. That could be a course. That could probably be turned into a course on its own, and then having the prompt engineering as part of that.
I don't know if you've taken a look at CompTIA's site lately, but they've got, I'm going to say anywhere between 8 and 10 different credentials or semi-credentials that relate to just exactly that aspect of AI.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a bit behind the times then. Wow.
Did you see what I'm saying? There's a lot there, isn't there?
You know,
I mean, there's also this issue, in addition to the Security Plus, I'm taking the hacker techniques and incident handling, and I'm basing that on the CompTIA CYSA Plus exam. There are certainly other areas in security, such as AI security is starting to become a big area.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that these companies are putting out AI products left and right, and they're not particularly secure, subject to being jailbroken and that kind of stuff. There's an awful lot going on.
Yeah, I think I'm actually thinking, especially after your recent suggestion, that maybe an AI course would be valuable for broader programs beyond CNS to take. I think what would actually fit nicely in here would be something like an AI agent security course, where you teach students to look at these agents not from a front end perspective, but from the back end, and how you think about them as a red teamer, how you might use them to gain data or access to things that you shouldn't have, and on the flip side, how would you stop that? Which goes back to a lot of fundamental security controls that we all know and love, but
Defense in depth, for example.
Yep. But knowing how to lock them down, even just at the basic level, that would be very attractive on a resume these days. And if Jackson College wanted to offer AI, using AI as a tool, these days it almost should go along with learning Microsoft Office, which I know a lot of the programs do. If the college was teaching almost all their students to leave with an understanding of how not to destroy a company with that skill, you'd be looked on very favorably.
What did you say the AI agent security course, knowing how to lock what down?
So it would be the agent software doing.
Agent software. Okay.
Yeah. So like how you're Sam, you're talking like how to like do the configurations and building the agents, right? Like that's kind of
Yep, setting it up for filtering of keywords and phrases, how to prevent it from gathering data in places that it shouldn't be permitted
yeah.
to reach. How do you separate its permissions from the permissions it inherits from you, the user, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And also, Larry, if you're looking for a replacement for that storage class, while it might be boring to a lot of people, I think a data security course might be useful because that's a growing job that I see a lot of like data security analysts, like data data steward is not usually an entry level job, but like I don't remember what the name of it is. It's like the data analyst might be the name of it, but it's usually like the person that does the work for the data steward, that kind of stuff. Like that's a big growing field because especially now with everything being interconnected because of AI, you come in and you go, oh, I didn't realize that Copilot, like we turned on Copilot for our organization. I didn't realize it could see all of our SharePoint and all of our like, like, and so knowing some of those data security concepts would be pretty valuable, I think, even if it's not what they go into.
I think back to back because I'm old now. I think back 28 years ago, life was simpler then. All we had to do was file and printer sharing.
Right click.
Yeah, that was the dawn of directory services with netware network directory services, and then
What do you mean I accidentally shared my OneDrive out to the internet?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
echoing your comments, Alex, that's a really good course, even though, to your point, yeah, it can totally be boring looking at fields inside of databases, metadata analysis, etc. But that is a foundational concept that enterprises are looking at when doing risk evaluation. And another way that a growing student can really elevate themselves in an interview or early on in their career is by helping reinforce what is the best strategic goal that I can accomplish from a security perspective right now, because I could there at any given moment there's a half dozen things that I could be spending my time trying to harden, lock down, and optimize, but it'll be best long term if I demonstrate that I'm consistently picking the items that have the greatest potential for negative exposure or malicious use. Um, and that can play into people who are eventually thinking about leadership roles as well, because that's a critical skill you'll have to have. And one quick backtrack. I've run a Proxmox server, and I think you'd really like it. It has a lot of the good things about VMware Workstation, with the added benefit of giving you the ability to access your VMs a little bit more flexibly.
is it much like an ESXi?
Yep, like ESXi, a very friendly yet still powerful interface. It seems like everything is logically where you'd want it to be. And if you know Debian, you can get behind the scenes and see how the underlying hypervisor is working, and do your performance monitoring. It even has stuff like built-in firewall.
Do
Well,
you like teaching a class?
yeah, the field is
I'm
really
might be a little too
is
rusty to
meeting.
feel
No,
confident in that, but it could be fun.
we need somebody to teach Proxmox. In fact, we need quite a few people to teach. So any of you guys think of some folks that could are interested in teaching, send them my way.
I'll keep that in mind.
Teaching what?
Just about anything in IT.
Hey,
go
can you
ahead.
guys hear me okay still?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. I've kept you guys long enough tonight. I really appreciate you joining me.